Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Today Show. I don't know about you, but I am ready for the weekend. I know we've still got another day left, but in my head, the weekend is here. But before that, we've obviously got the Today Show and we have got we've got loads of exciting guests, but we're going to kick things off with Tawhid Ar-Rahman. He's a mediator, a trained and registered mediator with the Family Mediation Council. And his journey into mediation began with navigating his own divorce, which led him to deeply understanding both UK and Islamic family law. For him, mediation is about facilitating amicable solutions and easing the burdens of legal disputes, especially within the Muslim community. Assalamu alaikum, Tawheed, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Wa alaikum salam.
Now, before we start, explain to me a little bit about your role. You know, what does a mediator do and how did you get into it?
Well, how I got into it is from my own, as you said, from my own personal experience of family breakdown and resolving through my own issues, which was some 12, 13 years ago, and got involved helping. Then after that, other people, I saw a lot of people going through the difficulties of marriage breakdowns and finally going through the court process and things, and an extremely expensive process, going through the solicitors, between 30, 50,000 pounds. Many people don't have that, so I ended up helping other people as a Mackenzie, so without obviously a voluntary Mackenzie. So I've done about 10 or 8 cases, from financials to child arrangement issues. So that led me to mediation, because I thought I have to do this formally. So if I'm going to help somebody, I have to be trained. And all of that, led to becoming a mediator some 4 years ago. Prior to that, I was a Mackenzie, as I said.
We spoke before the show and it blew my mind that you had no interest in law before. No. And then you were, if I remember correctly, you were inspired by your son, Zachariah, as well, weren't you?
Yes, well, to resolve issues with his mother, and that led me to go through the legal side of things. And I'm one of those people think that I like to understand everything, whether it's law or whatever. If I'm going to be dealing with something, I need to at least understand the basics, not rely on somebody else like a third-party solicitor or accountant or whatever else, doctors, but I need to understand it. That understanding led me study more and more. 4 years I studied on my own the principle, how to sort it out in court. And then I gone through the whole process and to resolve it.
Now, a lot of people are familiar with going to court when it comes to issues like that. Why do you think a mediator might be a better solution than going to court?
Well, as I said, when I went through court, I thought court is the only solution. And that is the norm, it seems, in our community at least. Mediation is a completely different approach. Not necessarily approach, you have to try mediation first before you can go to court, and it's mandated. At least one party has to try mediation, and mediation is voluntary. But the first part of mediation, which is mediation information assessment meeting, that simply means that parties have to get the basic information, and they can choose at the end if they want to do mediation. And that will, if they do, then they don't go through the court process. But court is not a place for such a conflict. It's like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, literally. You don't need to court. It goes through court. And court does not resolve the actual conflict. It may resolve the issues, but the conflict doesn't get resolved. And therefore, you're always having to deal with the other party through that kind of adversarial way, basically.
Do you feel like in our community, it's almost like a taboo subject to be talking about things like this?
Absolutely. It is a taboo subject, and it shouldn't be. We have divorces. Marriage is a wonderful thing, and sometimes marriage doesn't work. We have to recognize that. It doesn't mean it should end in divorce, but there are times it does, and we should take multitudes of steps before breaking a marriage. There are many things we can do. Getting counseling is one of those things I've talked about in the past in this show. Counseling is essential. If marriage isn't working, try other things. Go to get the right kind of advice. If that doesn't work, yes, unfortunately, divorce is there, and Islam allows to divorce for very reason. And it should be done respectfully, honorably. It's best for the children, and that's what we're trying to do as a mediator. See if we can talk through the processes, not necessarily bring the parties together. If they have decided to end, the mediation is the way to resolve financials and child arrangement issues without actually going through the court process. But you get exactly the same outcome, same result. It can be legally binding, whatever you decide in mediation, and it can be infinitely cheaper. In court, you're looking at between 20 and 30,000, 50,000, some cases, and even more. For a simple issue, and I've dealt with my clients, paid 32,000 for child arrangement, where they could have done it with me, but the one party decided not to. So it's a ridiculous price. Whereas mediation, you can do it in average £1,200. You might need a few meetings. Maximum, it will be several thousand, 2,000 to 3,000. But in my case, in my practice, none of my clients went over £3,000 to resolve it. Now, you've got 3 months maximum it will take to resolve in mediation, depending on how fast the client move. Whereas in court, you have no choice. You have to wait for the court process to, first initial meeting will be about 3 months, and beyond that, it could take up to 1.5 to 2 years. So that initial hearing, the first hearing, what's known as the first directional hearing.
I really like the part about where you said there about it's about the children. And there's a particular quote that I found on your website, and I want to get this right. On your website, it says, every child deserves the love and affection of both parents. Tell me why that means so much to you and why that's part of your ethos.
Well, I mean, no children should be growing up without two parents. Two parents bring two different love, two different approaches, and Allah gave us children as a family, and with single parents family, they can be wonderful kids, but you bring a different perspective, and children need the love of both parents to have really solid foundation in their upbringing.
Now, we're living in such a unique time now, in 2024, especially after the pandemic. What are some common issues that families face and they come to you to help resolve? And what advice do you give to them?
Well, the common issues are usually child arrangement, sorting out, getting access to the children, and the other one would be the financial settlement when they're divorced or separated, sorting out the finances, whether it's a property or anything else, maybe business, pensions and such like, and all of those can be done through the mediation process, and also divorces. Sometimes people talk about talaqs, and I don't go into Islamic Sharia advice, but I do have some knowledge and put them into the right direction, basically. So usually divorce, financial settlement, and child arrangement. There are other family come to two brothers having conflict, resolving those conflicts with land and such like, or properties, those things.
Now, I feel like your role as a mediator, there's probably a lot of barakat in it, and there's a lot of good feeling as well. Can you share with me sort of a success story that comes to your mind, a group or a family that you've helped out that you're really proud of?
Well, there are wonderful success stories, and if I think about one particular story, early in my days of after becoming a trained mediator, I had a client, I can't mention which country, but one client was abroad and another one was here, the British. And I was approached to resolve their financials. But they also had child arrangement issues. And the thing is, they did not believe in the idea of mediation, but they cannot go to court without trying mediation. They have no idea about mediation. So as soon as they went to apply to resolve the issues, you have to go through the mediation first. So we started mediating and gave them information and so on. And more we talked about it in the joint session. There lasted a number of joint sessions. They understood how it's working, and things was resolving. It wasn't just one meeting, but it was resolving. As it resolved, finally, we've gone to one issue after another, and then all of those issues. I remember the final issue was settling their finances. It lasted 3.5 hours. It was a 2-hour meeting. Then I saw things are moving. At the end of it, I was pretty much shaken. Basically, imagine your two persons are at loggerhead, basically, and fighting, and you're supposed to be taking it and simplifying it and reiterating it to them, and so it can be very demanding. But that was the most wonderful story. But what led to it towards the end, one party ended up moving to the other country I can't mention, and they resolved and they both got married to separate individuals. They moved on with their life, and they're seeing the children, the finances sorted out. So every now and then they call me and tell me, you know, things are going well and so on. And this is some years ago.
Wow.
So some clients do come back and update and
they keep in touch,
keep in touch. And
oh,
they're
that
very
must be
pleased.
amazing.
And it is wonderful.
Yeah.
It is. That makes it all worthwhile, basically.
Yeah, no, I bet. I mean, from our conversation, from a very short conversation that we've had so far, I feel like what I'm getting out of this is mediation is cheaper. You're more likely to come out with an amicable result, and everyone ends up being quite fairly happy afterwards.
Well, not always, but there are some wonderful stories. And, you know, there are time mediation doesn't resolve anything, and that's why the court is there for people to go through. And there are times that we can't mediate some cases, so there are all sorts of situations. But we should always consider resolving amicably, and that's what we've been encouraged as Muslims to resolve disputes as amicably as possible, and there is a barakah in there.
Now, if for our viewers at home, if they're sort of interested maybe in your services in mediation, how can they find out more information? How can they reach out to you?
Well, the first and foremost, they can go to any FMC, Family Mediation Council registered mediator.
That's FMC, yeah?
Family Mediation Council, and I'm registered with them, and they can find, and all mediators will do the same jobs. Some are more passionate, and others are less so, but if you, my company is called Salam Mediation, and I have a website. I'm also registered on FMC. You can find me both places, Salam Mediation.
Well, I just want to say once again, thank you to Tawhid. Thank you very much for taking the time to come on, for educating us all on this very taboo subject, like you said. And I want to thank you, viewers, as well. We are going to go for a quick, short commercial break. We'll be with you as soon as possible. But once again, I want to thank you, Tawhid, for taking the time to come on. And we'll see you straight after this break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.